Thanks for taking the time to make this webinar today. We're going to give you an update on the Turbo Autotrader that is currently live on the Signal Push marketplace. Before I proceed, I am required legally to read you this disclaimer, so please bear with me. The contents of this material are for informational purposes only and do not constitute investment advice. Blue Sky Binary assumes no responsibility for any potential errors, inaccuracies, or omissions in this material. Nothing in this communication contains or should be considered as containing an investment advice or an investment recommendation or a solicitation for the purpose of purchase or sale of any financial instrument. Binary options trading may not be suitable for all investors as it carries a very high degree of risk to your capital. Trading such products is risky and you may lose all of your investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Poor fill rates, expiry times, market volatility, and platform errors could result in losing trades. Before deciding to invest in binary options, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange and binary options trading, and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. The agenda for today is to give you a quick introduction on our automatic trading program. Then we will delve straight into the performance of the BSB Turbo Panda since it has been live. We'll discuss setup briefly. Then I'll give you some money management advice. Then we'll give you some pretty important risk warnings for those of you that are new to the auto trading industry. I think it makes some sense to pay heed to these. And then as always, we will end with a short Q&A. And this webinar is recorded and will be posted on YouTube as well. So to give you a quick introduction, the Blue Sky Binary Auto Trader program, it's a byproduct of Blue Sky Binary Research and Development. It has been in the making for about 9 months now. And the program's primary aim or objective or mission or whatever you want to call it is to deliver our highest quality signal streams and have them automatically traded on your binary option accounts at a variety of brokerages through time in a what we call platform agnostic manner. So not just spot option or not just Panda or Tech Financials platforms, but in theory, in an ideal world across all platforms. Now, the automatic trading program went live in Q1 of this year, around March 1st week, 2015, with 2 streams. Firstly, the BSB Extreme 15, which is a short-term variant of the Extreme signal that we've engineered. And of course, the BSB Turbo, which had at that time and still has held a win rate of about 66%. And over the course of the remainder of this year, so basically Q4, our goal is to roll out more streams as and when we see fit. Now, the subject of this webinar, of course, is the BSB Turbo Panda. It is a short-term mean reversion algorithm with 2 sub-algorithms in place to ensure that it remains low variance, which means that the returns remain pretty constricted around the average mean ITM. We try and minimize very exorbitant returns like 80%, 90%, but we also try to minimize very weak returns like 20%. So we want to keep it close to the average. We have created a live performance analysis and a calculator for those of you that want to track its performance through time. It's a Google spreadsheet. When you click on this link, it will take you there. And we'll also post this link live after this webinar. So let's go over the performance in detail. This is a visualization of a hypothetical $300 account, so assuming a $300 deposit, and a trade risk of about 10% per trade. All right, so this is how it was on the day it started, and this is where it stood as of last Friday, basically. Let's talk a little about stats. So in total, about 224 trades have fired, and that equates to about 3 per business day. Now, that doesn't mean that every day you're going to get 3 trades. Some days you will get none. Most days you'll get 1 or 2, but in some days you may get a hyper volume owing to market conditions, and you may get 10 or 20. That's very rare, but it has happened before. The win rate that it has clocked, so this is live results, is 67.0%, and the consecutive wins were 16. at any given point in time during this observation period, and the consecutive losses were 6. From a returns standpoint, so as stated earlier, we assumed a balance of 300 to start with, and the current balance prior to payment of fees would be 1,320, equating to a gross return of 340% ROI over this period. Now, if you factor in the fees, and currently the Autotrader is priced at $99.99 a month, that comes to about 240%. So fees basically reduce the return by about 100%. Obviously, on such a small account, the factoring of fees, which are absolute in terms, not percentage-based, does bite into returns more. But per month, you're looking at a net return of about 40% over this observation period. And before I proceed, before everybody gets excited, I do want to point out that it is very important. Nowhere is this more true than in binary options, that past performance is not indicative of future results, and you can, of course, lose all your capital in any type of trading, but especially in binary options. And with that in mind, let's discuss a little bit about the risk. So the risk per trade that we have set in our own account as well is at 10%, so at $30 per trade, assuming that the original deposit was $300. The total drawdown experienced by this Autotrader was just in week 1, actually, and it went down to about 230 at one point. So from 300, it was down to 230, and that's a drawdown of 24%. Now, obviously, that 24% comes down dramatically. It can come down to 10% if your initial deposit is higher. Right. So if some of you may consider a deposit of 300 pretty paltry, pretty low, we would say somewhere around the 500 mark is more realistic, and anything kind of above 1,000 is getting pretty excessive. In terms of weeks, so there were 18 calendar weeks, and the way Signal Push calculates weeks is a little bit different. So you're going to see a bit different figure on the next page where we're going to go over weekly return in depth. But basically, it's about 1 in 3 weeks that end up being unprofitable with this Autotrader, right? So not every week is profitable. Very luckily, on a monthly basis, it has been live for 5-6 months now. Each month has actually been profitable, right? So that's pretty powerful in our perspective. But on a weekly basis, 1 in 3 weeks, statistically, it seems that the Autotrader does go into negative territory. And the reason I say this from a third person is it's very important to point out that although we have hybrid signal streams, we have purely robotic signal streams, and we have purely human senior traders, this turbo is 100% automated, right? So contrary to what is being said on some forums that there is some human management, there isn't. There are a lot of algorithms that are running the Autotrader, some stability algorithms that we call stabilizers, so that it generates some stable return. But there is no human intervention in this. And very importantly, there is no martingale. Okay, so we are an anti-martingale group. We understand how martingale works. We understand the mathematics, but we are not going to be incorporating martingale in any of our Autotraders, whether they are on Signal Push or on other marketplaces. So I think this slide is more important than the previous slide. For us, if you take the analogy of what pilots are charged with every day when they fly an airplane from destination A to destination B, it's not just okay to deliver passengers, but it doesn't matter, if engines are missing and half of them have their hips broken. It's important to get the passengers there safely and in a way that they've been able to taste the champagne and actually enjoy the flight. Right, and the same thing holds true for us as financial engineers. It's important to deliver an Autotrader which is effectively not making every single day of trading a heartache for you, which means that one day it's 100% ITM, the next day it's 0% ITM. So what we try and do is we try and minimize these red areas that you see. So what you're seeing on the screen in front of you is effectively 29 weeks of performance. And the reason it says 29 weeks here and here it says 18 is because Signal Push has a slightly different way of calculating these periods. But generally speaking, the amount of trades here is the same amount of trades that you're seeing here, which is 224. What is very important to note from your perspective as a current client or a future client, prospective client, is that first of all, you're not going to get profitability every week, right? That's at this moment, the technology we have, we don't have something that generates that. If there are signal providers that do, we highly suggest you go with them. So, and I'll take questions towards the end, so there's no point in asking them now. I won't be responding to them. So, take for example here, the first week we had just 4 trades, but 75% win rate. The next week, 7 trades with a 30% win rate. Week 3, 11 trades, 91%. Week 4, flat. Week 5, 3 trades, 67%. Week 6, 75%. Week 7, 2 trades, 50%. Week 8, 2 trades, 0%. Followed by week 9 and week 10 of 75% and 100% with 8 trades. Week 11, 4 trades, 50%. Week 12, 6 trades, 83%. And the story continues. And what you're noticing is that on a 4-weekly basis or on a monthly basis, the Autotrader has actually made money. And it actually had a very strong run somewhere around this cluster here, which actually contributed to a lot of the growth in the balance. But what I want to point out here is that you're probably not going to get a month where 1 or maybe 2 weeks haven't been unprofitable. What you're also seeing here is that when the Autotrader goes unprofitable, at least based on this 6-month history, it does so on a very reduced volume, right? 4 trades, 2 trades, 2 trades. And when it's winning on significant volumes as well, 18 trades, 12 trades, 14 trades, okay? And that's important. So if you are viewing performance on a monthly basis, then this has a potential to outperform like it has. If you are looking to deposit in week 1 and withdraw every week, you're probably not going to be generating positive returns. Let's discuss setup. So the automatic trading program currently at Blue Sky Binary runs through Signal Push. Our streams are featured on their app marketplace as either bundles or standalone streams. The Autotrader, the BSB Panda, is a standalone stream. Now, you are welcome to follow the instructions on their website in order to set up a new account or connect your existing broker account with the Turbo Panda. Our head of research and development, who's on this webinar, Otto, he's very happy to assist you. He's there for that as well. So you're very welcome to add Blue Sky Binary to your Skype, and we'll walk you through the process. Now, remember, there's no chart setup required. It's not like this is a signal that's being blasted to you and then you decide whether you want to take it. This is actually a fully auto-traded or auto-tradable solution. Although there is some software that is required that needs to be installed on a VPS, on a virtual private server, and we are happy to help you with this, or the Signal Push support team, I'm sure, is happy to oblige as well. Now, with regards to money management, we've created a trade calculator for you, which should be on our website now. If it's not, you can also contact us on Blue Sky Binary. We'll give you the link. It's a Google spreadsheet, so you can do the maths right there. What we would suggest at first is to just set your trades to the near minimum, so $25 to $50 trades. Kind of, the results are promising, but going in with $300, $500 trades is just not advised at this stage. So we would also, in that in mind, advise you to deposit a relatively small amount at first, just so that you de-risk the capital and get a feel of the Autotrader. There is no need to go in with $1,000. If you are thinking about going into any Autotrader, we would always suggest to err on the side of caution and kind of deposit a few hundred as opposed to a few thousand. Definitely take a long-term view on your capital. Autotraders in general are not for the get-rich-quick type. They kind of chug along. The ones that go in pretty big with martingaling, etc., they can look pretty for some period, but sometimes the market can turn against them and destroy a lot of the capital if you don't have some manual stops in place. I think, and this is a pretty important point. At best, this Autotrader or any Autotrader that we ever go on to release may generate or may become a source of passive income for you, but it will not replace your primary source of income, most likely. All right, that's our own kind of view on the industry, where it's headed. It can become a second source or a third source of income, but it's not going to give you the ability to fend for your whole family. Now, in a very odd event, markets sometimes face these black swan events, as they're called, like we saw with Lehman Brothers many years ago, or like we saw with the Swiss National Bank that took some brokerages down earlier on this year. If you experience a very heavy drawdown with this Autotrader, which we consider more than 75%, we would ask you to cease the program and just move on, maybe learn how to trade or move on to another stream. We also have a full service structured education program known as BSB Trader University, where we, of course, teach you how to trade in a very professional manner. And I think this risk warning, please do pay heed to it. The Autotrader industry, and we've had a more detailed webinar on this 6 months ago or 5 months ago, where we spoke about the prospects and the lack of infrastructure and the lack of trust between brokers and infrastructure providers and clients. And that situation is slightly ameliorated since then. It's slightly improved, but not by much. And in our view, generally speaking, placing large amounts of capital at the mercy of an Autotrader is always a high risk activity. So we would definitely ask those that are interested in this to only play with capital that they can really afford to lose. Very important is to do your homework on the required broker, go through the terms and conditions to ensure that there are no problems with the withdrawal if you do wish to withdraw any potential gains. And again, last but not least, we do not advise on depositing more than 500 with any broker for any BSB ATP stream, whether it's the Turbo or some of the streams on Signal Hive. And also, I think more important to that point, the numbers show that it's just not required, right? So if we go back to this equity curve, this is on a $300 account. I'm sitting at 1,326 months later, and net of fees on about close to 900. So I think that just shows that you don't need to deposit, 1 or 2, 3,000 and take large trades. You can actually allow something like this to take on over time with the view to make, maybe quarterly withdrawals or biannual withdrawals or annual withdrawals. And of course, there is no lock-in period. Okay, so that's it. Q&A. I'll take questions now, please. Go ahead. Okay, I see a question from Johan Loising regarding the screen share. Johan, there may be an internet problem. I've been sharing my screen since the beginning, and I hope others have been able to see it as well. Sometimes we get this using GoToWebinar that 1 or 2 clients can't see the screen. Normally, this is an internet issue on your side, or maybe a connectivity issue with GoToWebinar. Any other questions? Last call for questions. See a question from Zen Zilstra. Are you going to be sending out an email for the updates with your Autotrade a day or a week? Zen, that's a good question. So we send out monthly performance updates. However, the performance link is available on our website, blueskybinary.com. And if you click on that, that shows you a trade-by-trade tally. So that's live. All right, so you can always just refresh that page. It's from Signal Push, and you can take it from there. Okay, I see a question from Alvaro. What is the difference between the Turbo Panda stream on Signal Push and the turbos fired on Hive in terms of algorithm? In terms of the algorithm, Alvaro, there is no difference at all. Question from Leslie. Are trade sizes easily adjustable? Yes, Leslie, they are. This can be done on your Signal Push panel. So a question from John Cavana. As I'm finding with current robots, less than 50% are actually available with my brokers. I take it you mean currency pairs. What percentage typically available with best brokers? That's a good question. So typically what we see with the current broker, which is use with our BSB Turbo Panda is that if the turbo fires, let's say 8 trades per day, about 3 are replicated, 3 to 4. So it's about 50% dropout, given that some brokers don't have certain pairs at certain times, etc., etc. So I would assume a 50% filter rate, John. See a question from Les. Does our computer need to be connected to the broker server or does it operate independently? Your computer doesn't need to be connected to anything, but your computer should be running a VPS, which is connected 24 hours to the Signal Push software via one of their downloadable softwares, and that is connected to your broker and ensures a constant connection. The setup of this VPS, also known as a virtual private server, is something that we can help you with. See a question from Alfred. At the end, you mentioned lockout period regarding withdrawals. I assume, can you explain further? No, that's a good question, Alfred. No, so there is no lockout. I mean, there is no lock-in. This isn't a hedge fund. We're not managing anyone's money here. You can withdraw every day, in theory. We're just suggesting that you view performance on the long-term basis here. So if you're looking to get in and withdraw on a weekly basis, this Autotrader, given its low volume, just doesn't have that type of deliverance. If you had an Autotrader that was, let's say, 5 times the volume of this, then in theory, every week could, again, I say in theory, be profitable. But because there's low volume in the turbo, we're talking 30 to 50 trades a month, you're going to get this kind of truncated, not truncated, but I would say almost waterfall type of performance where you get maybe 1 week not so good, 2 weeks great, 1 week not so good, 2 weeks great, that type of performance. This is why I suggested that you take a longer term view on your withdrawals. I see a question from Adam. If I use the turbo signal on Signal Hive manually, will the win rate be significantly less due to lapse in time to take the trade? Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a good point Adam brings up. So the turbo stream specifically, and turbo signals in general, so we have 2 types of turbos fired on the on Signal Hive. One is a manual turbo from our trader called the Key. Now his turbos are very successful with clients because he gives a setup. So he gives you a setup and you have a good minute or 2 to prepare the pair. And so users are easily able to replicate that. The turbo that's firing in the robot section of the Hive, the problem there is that you don't know when it's going to come. And when it comes, normally you'll notice that by the time you get your turbo panel up, you've missed the opportunity, unless price has moved against you, against the price, in which case you have a better entry. But that's a rarity. That happens in 33% of the times. 67% of the time, as you see with the win rate, is that you're probably going to miss the price. So what we recommend is that for those of you that want to specifically capitalize on the turbo, get it automated, because it's such a short duration burst type of signal. Manual trading of it is generally probably uncommercial. Thanks for bringing that point up, Adam. A great question from Les. Les is asking, would you not suggest scaling the trade size as the account gain size? I personally would on my own account, Les. Again, I can't give investment advice based on your account or other people's accounts, but on my own account, yes, I would. I mean, what I would basically do is I'd deposit maybe 300 at first, let it grow with the minimum trade size until it grows to a handsome amount, and then I would withdraw the original capital so that the trader is completely de-risked from my original investment. And at that point, I will start to use a compounding strategy. Maybe on a weekly basis, I would adjust the compounding levels, or on a monthly. You can't do it dynamically, not that I'm aware, unless someone else knows of that functionality on Signal Push. I see a question from Alvaro. When Hive ATP goes live, if we get copied the turbos from Hive, it won't be necessary to sign into the Pando turbo stream on Signal Push because they both be the same. Is this right? Yeah, that's right, which is why probably the turbo won't be included in the Signal Hive ATP. This is a stream that we want to keep running on Signal Push, and we want to keep it running for the masses. It's a good kind of brand builder for us as well, and of course, as long as it remains stable, it's a good income generator for clients. On Hive, we have a multitude of streams, as you've seen. The turbo is 10% of what we offer there. So I think for all sakes of practicality, unless something changes for us internally strategically, there is no reason for us to do that, to ask people to just leave Signal Push and go ahead and sign up on Hive for the turbo. So this specific stream, unless something changes, I think we're okay with leaving this here for now. Any other questions from anybody? I have a question from here from Zen Zilstra. It costs $99 a month, so probably you must have monthly profits of more than $99.99. Yeah, Zen. So you're absolutely right. In order for this Autotrader to break even or be profitable, you need to generate a net return of more than $99 a month on your account. Okay. As you've seen with the equity curve, again, this is not something we're ever going to guarantee. It would just be illegal for us to guarantee future returns. But what you can see is, at least based on the last 6 months of live performance, that has been the case. It has been able to meet its costs and then some. In fact, the net return post fees on a monthly basis was 40%. I see a question from Simon Patmore. Can you run the human traders on ATP and the turbo on the same Signal Push account? Simon, that's a question for Otto, and I will add you to the Hive ATP room on Skype, and you can address that there. Just upon first glance, the answer is yes. Maybe Otto can actually, I see him on the webinar. I'm just going to unmute him and see if he has access to the mic facility here. Otto, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yes. If I understood the question right, then was it essentially running the Turbo Panda and also the human traders at the same time with the same account?
Correct, yeah. He's saying, can you run the human traders on ATP and the Turbo on the same Signal Push account?
Yes, that is correct. They will not interfere with each other. It's perfectly fine.
Great. Thanks, Otto.
Yep.
All right, I see a question from Les Van Gent. Will there be a tweaking with the signal stream over time? Great question. So Les, we're working on Turbo 2.0, which is basically a higher volume version of the Turbo. And it also accommodates Asian market trading, which the current one doesn't. So we need to make the algorithm smarter. And the Turbo 2.0 is already being tested, and it's showing some pretty satisfactory results so far. But the current stream we're not going to mess with, mainly because we don't want to fix something that isn't broke. But we're going to probably be launching the Turbo 2 as a separate stream. All right, I see a question from Alvaro. From all brokers using Panda platform, can you recommend the best one? Alvaro, unfortunately, for legal reasons, we can't do that. We generally don't like to mention broker names on webinars. Sure. I see a question from John Cavana. My concern is that if only half of the signals are available, it means margins will be substantially reduced so that a $300 account will not generate positive return, especially as brokers only tend to have the riskier trades available or shave entry prices. Okay, if I may quell your concerns, so the chart you're looking at right now disproves what you just said. So despite of shaving of entry prices and 50% filtration rates, the Turbo, which is only replicating 30 to 40% of its true potential, has been profitable. So yeah, you are right that it will bite into returns, but not to the extent that returns will go negative, as you see here with a gross return of 340% and a net return of 240 post fees on a $300 account, and with a risk of 10%. Any other questions? Les, good question. Les is asking, will 2 or more streams run at the same time? Yeah, on the Hive ATP, up to 11 streams in theory will be running. For the Turbo, it's just 1 stream. So this particular Autotrader will not be tampered with. So to put it, we're not going to introduce new algorithms to it or remove algorithms from it. There are currently 3 that are running 24 hours to make this Autotrader stable, so to put it. So we're not adding or removing anything. All right, there's a question from Zen Silstra. Can I use the Autotrader at the same time if I make my own trades? 1 second. I think I'll defer this one to Otto. Otto, Zen is asking if he can use the Autotrader at the same time if he's also making trades in that account that's being auto-traded.
Yes, he can, and I have also officially confirmed it with some managements here that nothing will be interfered at all.
Great. Thanks, Otto.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? Last call for questions. A good question from Alvaro. The VPS monthly fee, is it the same for running one stream or for running 10 streams through the same signal push account? It's the same, Alvaro. The VPS, I think, clocks in somewhere at $9 to $39 a month, depending on which VPS you're going for. So yeah, that's a fixed cost that you need to factor into your ROI as well. But generally speaking, VPSs are quite cheap these days. I see no further questions. I'll see you all next time. Take care.